recognized that, yeah, how we would build an interface was something that we could not get one opinion on, so we created two approaches, at least for the overview of the upcoming jobs. One I don't have to say too much about. I guess it's because it's from the idea quite similar to what Mika showed us. We have a list that we can filter by some items. We don't have the nice calendar, I must say, that you put in up there. And yeah, but we add the status to each of, like you did, each of these items. And we would say that most of the needed information is in each of these list items. You can, as in your approach, two functions for editing and deleting it in the list. We don't have the nice idea about how to monitor, because we were in a discussion about how another way about visualizing this would come up. I don't know. I guess
some of the points we were discussing during our discussion was that you can have exactly the same data points, exactly the same activities or functions that you're performing or interactions that you're performing, but render the information quite differently depending upon your preferences, your mental models, etc. And so we talked about two different conceptions of how you might want something to be presented. There's the list view, and then the other was the calendar view. And the point that we were making in the calendar view was that it gave you, if you're thinking in terms of time and timing, and you're arriving at the beginning of the day and you want to know what, in fact, you have ahead of you, when the busy times are, when the whatever, and some alerting to where the trouble points might be, it may be good to have a calendar view where you quickly get a broad scan perspective of, these are all the events at 9, these are the ones at 10, some sense of where you are at the moment in terms of time, potentially some alerts to these rooms are not working, and then, okay, and where are these rooms at the moment, and what do I need to reschedule? So this was exactly the same information, the same sorts of sorting, the same sort of filtering, but just a different visual presentation of the same data. We also had somewhat of a discussion about accessibility and of these two, and specifically, I mean, and the points that we were making were that accessibility doesn't just mean screen readers, and accessibility is a fairly broad perspective, and usually what it means is designing for diversity, so designing for different perspectives on things. But if we were to take the example of a screen reader, there seems to be some perception that tables are not very accessible. But a table is just basically a tree structure, and what you do with the screen reader is you navigate through a tree structure, and these are both tree structures. And here I'm just going to navigate by time, and then navigate by, so I will say either tab to the time that I want, and then arrow across to the, or even enter the, if it's Hochmann lecture, enter the H, and then I get directly to that particular event. So this is just as accessible to a screen reader as this. The issue is not how is it visually presented, but how do I navigate to things, and how do I, and how is it organized in a logical, structural way. Is that it? Yeah.
Great.
We have 1 speaker more. So much of a surprise. It's about how to edit an event. We noticed that we had some misconceptions in the group about what's an event and series. And so it's more or less, as we noticed in the end, a mixture of what is the editor for the series and the event. So we have to enter a title, a lecturer, a start time, and stuff like this. We enter a room with a drop-down menu to be sure that only we select rooms that are available for recording. We decided for not to select an end time, but a duration, because to pick a duration with a drop-down menu or something like this is much easier than to enter a new date by time and date picker. Yeah, for this event we select which capture devices to use. Yeah, and then we came to what's the difference between an event and a series. At first, it's just a series has something like a recurring scheme, while the event would probably have something to link back to the series. And we for sure should have the possibility to edit the recording date, deferring to what the recording scheme says in the series, because possibly the lecturer is on holiday or on a conference on Monday and he will move the lecture to a Tuesday or something like this. And so editing the event would not mean that it's out of the series. It still should be staying there. Yep, that's to this. We had a discussion about how we should select the capture devices, because what we have at the moment at several systems, I must say, is that we only select, I want to record VGA, I want to record camera 1, camera 2, I want to record the microphone, and that it may be a possible problem for recording a lecture, that if I unselect the microphone, I get only the video stuff or something like this, and we should have error messages there saying, okay, if you unselected the audio, are you sure you want to do this, because you won't have any. Another approach would be to say that we have radio boxes to say I only want to record audio only, or I want to record video, and only if I select video I am able to select the cameras and VGA and stuff that is in the room. So
I've got a couple of questions. It's regarding roles and user feedback. What happens if one tries to schedule an event in a room where the equipment is not functional?
A good question, I would say.
If
it's far along in the future, I would say don't mind, somebody will be there to change it, but if it's in the near future, possibly you should tell, okay, there may be a problem, and call this number.
Exactly. Another question related to that is regarding roles. The scheduling, if I refer to my university, scheduling would probably be done by some secretary at a department, while the technical facilitation and the support, fixing problems, etc., would exist in another organization. So you have two various roles when scheduling and handling support problems, and they need to be coordinated in some kind of way. Otherwise, it's again the user feedback. You get some problems. People think they've scheduled an event and everything is okay, and at the same time you've got technicians working on it, and then the lecture arrives and so
actually, I think that they're really great ideas, and so we're going to have a proposal too. So think about these in terms of remember these, because we have an exercise for the afternoon where it's going to be important to
organizational roles is very important to the software.
I know that he mentioned the words of roles and so on, and that is, we decided that's out of scope. But for this, I would say, especially in my case, or not only my case, with Mera and I don't know who else was in the group, I liked the idea they had in their screen marked everything with an X that I can remove it, but I don't mind the X. I just want to say it more or less looks like something that is separate. I don't have it as a fixed part of my page, and it would be a gadget, call it this way. And and we decided to create our interfaces as gadgets, more or less. And so in such a way, I would say the overview for the capture agents is something that the administrator of the agents can put on his start screen in his portal software, whatever he uses, without such an effort. And he will, whenever he comes to his desk, see, okay, this does not work, and he can react on it, while it may be only a watch out information for the secretary who schedules the events.
Yeah.
And so it's not out of scope, it's just copying, it's up to your institution to copy the gadget to whatever you
Deal with
want.
all the authentication issues that could come around with that. I mean, I'm saying there's more to it than that, but I agree with you that it could be exposed to the gadget.
The gadget is exposed, and you can put the gadget behind the authentication of your portal system, where you say, okay, only to this area the person who is responsible for the capture devices can look at.
Yes, it's a question about need to know, so the secretary scheduling events will see which events, time slots and locations are really available.